Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm going to take about 20 minutes of your life to deliver some amazing content from accomplished leaders and business owners to help provide you with great Ironman mindset ideas to help you scale your business to become a better leader and push yourself out of your comfort zone. We have now doubled our audience. We really hope you enjoy these shows and really encourage you to like and share with friends, family members, and your network. Based on my book, The Ironman Mindset for Entrepreneurs, I want to try and pull out one insight you could take back from your business on every single show. And ultimately, my goal is to try and make you less mistakes than I did and make your company more profitable. I'm also super excited to share that finally we've gone live with our digital courses on the Wilson 360 website, wilson-360.com. Cheers, everyone. Hi, this is Robert Clickybeard with the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. Really excited today to be joined by Norm Ripper. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Tell the audience a little bit about your business and about your background, if you don't mind.
So I got out of the military in 2003. I'd been in for 6 years. I was a Chinese linguist when I was in. I had a childhood friend who was working at a landscape business up in Virginia where I grew up. We just had a dumb idea to start a business. I was kind of sick of people telling me what to do all the time. So he came down. I used the bonus money that I got from being in the military and bought the same as everybody else's story, a trailer and a mower, and we just started knocking on doors, and we started doing residential maintenance in Central Florida. I believe over the first 4 years, I probably quit like 10 times. It was pretty desperate back then. It's a hard way in Central Florida to make a living off doing residential maintenance. So I happened to stumble into a bid for a government project for maintenance and bid on it, and somehow they gave it to me. And that's kind of where my journey began as a real business. I think we got that first government job in 2006. And really, we've specialized in government work since then. Because of the buyouts and everything, I would say we're one of the, maybe 3 or 4 biggest government contractors in Central Florida. We're up to this past year, we ran 17 maintenance crews. We also finally started running an enhancement division that we have 2 full-time crews working in, plus a full-time tree crew. Over the last year, after COVID, we decided we would also start getting into the HOA realm. So we have several HOAs now as well. So basically, we're doing about 90% government and 10% HOA work.
That's awesome. First of all, thank you for your service. Government contracts, I don't get many contractors coming on the show and just, talk about how they sort of specialize in that area. When I had my company, we steered away from that just because, there's so many hoops to jump through and red tape. And I think the one guarantee out of most of them is you're guaranteed to get paid. But talk to me about, going into the government contracts. And it sounds as though you had to grow up pretty quickly when you got into that in the first place.
Yeah, the government, it's just like anything else. The more you're in it and the more you're doing it all the time, the more you know. And you can kind of figure out what the expectations are. The biggest thing is a lot of the contracts scare people, but once you really learn whoever's in charge of it, what their real expectations are, the contracts really are more based off individuals' expectations than they are the massively overworded government contracts that we sign. Because it really just depends on whoever's the holder of the contract. We've had that first contract that we got back in the day. I remember I spent many a days on my hands and knees picking cigarette butts out of rocks in front of a courthouse,
right.
Which now seems absolutely ridiculous to me, and I shouldn't have been doing it back then. But there was a different person in charge, and you got to do what you got to do sometimes. But you really have to figure out exactly what it is they're looking for. And that holds true into the bidding too. There's a lot of services on the bids that hold monies as part of the overall bid when they look at awarding it that they're never even going to use. So part of the things that we do is look at the contract as a whole, the history of what pieces of that contract have been used before. And then you kind of got to be willing to gamble a little bit sometimes with where you put the money in the contracts. And that's kind of the trick to it. And the other thing is that you just have to follow through on what you promise that you're going to do and do all the visits. A lot of companies aren't good about doing all their visits like they're supposed to, but we are. So we probably 20% of our government contracts are no bid, where they just approach us after the fact and gave us the contracts.
That's awesome.
You can do a lot of good things in the government side. You just have to be in there, and you kind of have to become the expert for the government entities so they can always come to you for all their issues. And that's the best way. And I don't think it's fair that people look at government that way, because I always looked at commercial that way too, because commercial is so much about who you know, and getting in good with just a few people can make a massive successful business. So I never had that before. So I always stayed away from commercial for the same reason a lot of people stay away from government.
Yeah, a couple of questions just popped into my head. Is it fair to say that people dealing with the government contracts, there's a fair bit of stability there? The same people are there for years and years. I used to be back in the government back in the day, and I think once you're in there and you're enjoying your benefits, there's not a great deal of movement. But is that fair, or do you see a bit of movement? And
yeah, most of the people that are in there are lifers. So yeah, like I've had, I guess it goes different ways. I've had some contracts where I've been on for 15 years, and I've had 3 different people that I've dealt with over those 15 years. And I have contracts that are about the same size where the same person has been on it the whole time. It is like, so from my experience from HOAs so far, which is only about 2 years, where I've already had multiple people in charge of all of those HOAs during that time period. And government is definitely not like that. It's definitely not. It's much more stable. You have the chance to build more of a relationship on the government side than it seems like you can for individual properties.
I even think about, we used to deal with apartments, and apartments were just notorious for almost like a new change in manager every 6 months, and it was really tough to build that relationship. So having somebody there for 5, 10, 15 years is, really good to build that relationship.
Yeah. It's really worked out in our favor a lot, I think.
Now, you mentioned, it's really just trying to, taking some chances or taking some risks. I'm thinking about, say, a contractor, a different state. So we'll not use Florida as an example, but maybe they're working in Arizona. They're maybe first time looking at some type of government contract. What are some of the things to look for in a contract if they're coming in completely brand new? They've heard this podcast. They've got inspired by you.
I would say the first thing you need to do is really go look at the shape that the properties that you're bidding on are in, because that's a real good signal of the quality standard that they're upholding. So if you read through the contract and it's the craziest thing you've ever seen, where it's so specific and so much work, and you don't think there's any way that anybody could do that, and then you go look at the property and it looks semi-abandoned, then you know that that's not the real expectation of what they're looking for in that property. So I think probably 80% of the people are scared away just from what the bid documents look like before they even get on the property. And even in the pre-bid meetings, they just vocalize what's in the actual bid as opposed to what's really going on at these sites. So The expectations are definitely much lower than what's in the actual bids themselves. But I would say it's like anything else. I would go in and start with the smallest contract in your area that you can find that's government related, and practice on it and see what you can do. Also in Florida, there's way more government work than I think there is anywhere else in the country. So I don't know if it carries over so much in other places or not.
So one of the other things that pops into my head is just, how do you mentioned about how they're quite sticky on making sure you're following through. And I don't know if that gets down to the quality piece or just the number of visits. How do you sort of keep compliant per se?
Yeah, I think it's about being on site when you're supposed to be on site. They definitely don't have an expectation of everything being perfect, but they do have an expectation that you're going to be there. So I think that's really the difference. If they're like, all the contracts around here are so different, but if the contract has 42 mow visits a year or 31 mow visits a year, they're expecting you're going to be there and mowing that amount of times. Now, if there's super high detail work on site also, their expectation is never going to be that it's perfect. A lot of these bids also have very stringent like fertilization and pest control guidelines for turf. But if you go look at the properties, you'll see that the properties are 90% weeds. So you can't really spray weed killer and do all these things on these properties, because what they do is they'll get a hold of one generic contract and they'll use it for everywhere. So a county will use it and then all the cities will copy it, and none of them really know what it means or understands the implications off of it or anything. And then really they just steal each other's contracts and use them, but that's not even what they're looking for or what they're used to getting or anything, and they don't understand them. So usually if the contract is complicated for you looking at it, they have no idea what it's supposed to be doing.
That's funny. That's interesting. That's a great nugget right there. I know, again, through experience, we've dealt with some government contracts and, FBI stuff, and there's some quite tight compliance issues around the personnel you put on. They have to go through different background checks and security clearances. Is that similar with some of the contracts you're involved in?
Federal contracts are really completely different from the stuff that we do around here for, cities, states, and counties. We have some requirements and restrictions, like at the international airport, we have to be badged to go into secure areas and things like that while on site. But a lot of them have stuff like that in their contracts, but they don't really implement them or see them through or make it a thing. So there are several contracts out there that we have that there really isn't even a program to get cleared, even though it says it in the contract. So a lot of that goes along with the scary wording. And that's why the incumbents always have the advantage in government work, because they already know what they really need to do and other people don't.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. That's a good nugget right there. One of the other things we talked about offline was, you've obviously done a great job, growing your company. Obviously, getting into your government work was, I think, a good catapult into getting on other contracts. What have been some of your struggles in going through those different phases of growth in terms of either people or systems and processes?
Yeah, systems are always an issue, I guess. The more you grow, the more systems you need, and redo your systems all the time. I would say probably the biggest challenge over those years is probably corralling myself, doing what I'm supposed to be doing and changing what my role is for the business. Anyone who started a business like this wants to have their hands in every single thing and, tell everybody no all the time and explain to them why they're wrong and you're right. Withholding my opinions and allowing the guys, rope to go out and fail and work on things themselves. I think that's probably been my biggest struggle, that I'm finally getting to the point where I see the importance of it so much that I'm just kind of running with it now. But I have fantastic people that work here. A lot of the people that have worked here have worked for me for, 10 plus years. All the crew leaders we have here have been here for multiple years. We've had real good luck with families and people wanting to stick around and be here. So, a lot of the employees have had to and are still learning to grow into different positions. Really, one thing that's terrified me in the last year or so is hiring somebody from the outside, because everybody talks about bring an expert in, bring people who know more than you. You want to be the dumbest guy in the room, but it's so hard to find somebody like that without having a background in looking for someone like that. And then also making sure they don't mess up, the feel of the business. I think that's another struggle that I'm going to be going into next year, because I'm at a point now where I'm going to have to do something for the financial side of our business because of how big we're growing. And I've been doing all that myself also. So I really need help with that. But trying to find somebody to help with that is the scariest thing.
How do you, obviously it sounds like you've got some great people in your business. How are you, or maybe you're still going through this transition where you're elevating their knowledge and building great leaders out of them? Is that something that you're currently doing or in the process of doing?
My number 2 is my operations VP, Reggie. He has now started having the other departments direct report to him. And we have been running weekly meetings, and he's now taking over the weekly meetings. So I'm not involved in all that. So everybody's kind of moved up. Everyone who's here has been bumped up into different positions. A few of them have been in it most of this year. A couple of them just moved into it in the last month or so. So I have to say we have the best maintenance people in Central Florida here. But it's about, them learning how to do all the hours in their department for Aspire and working on email protocol with customers and all these things as they take over as, point of contacts for more and more things. So that's the kind of stuff that we're really working with all the guys on right now.
Super helpful stuff. Because you're right. It's great elevating people to a higher position, but building in some type of KPIs or metrics to be able to get them almost to self-measure and how they're doing. I think that's something that's an ongoing process, and it sounds like you're right in that stage right now.
Yeah. Well, I read a lot of the industry books, and I've listened to almost every podcast in the industry that exists, all of them, every episode. A lot of the ways that everybody's saying to run their businesses now, like, you need to follow this system or that system, and you need to have core values and all these things. To me, that kind of seems a little silly. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I kind of like just to concentrate onto the individual people and build them into a position that suits them the best, more than, we love fun and we're about hard work, because the guys wouldn't be here if they didn't know that already and they weren't showing that every day. I think I'm just a little bit more practical than I guess a lot of the other people are. And I know that's funny to say business consultant, but but that's what I think.
No, I mean, I think there's definitely an element of truth there, because I actually did a podcast recently, and that was the first thing they said is, if you have great people and you work on those people and you develop them, then they'll just naturally take care of the clients, they'll take care of their jobs. And yes, you can add in a mix of KPIs and other systems and processes in there, but if that core is just treat your people well, I mean, that goes a long way in itself.
Yeah, caring, I think, is the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, if you take care of your employees, they're naturally just going to take care of clients and the people that effectively pay their wages.
Yeah. That's why I started this year. I sent everyone who was in management, got to pick, or maybe I directed a little bit of it, but to go to an industry event in one way or another. Not this year, but last year we all went to the Aspire conference. So this year they all went to separate things. Like some of them went to like behind the scenes events at a few of the companies. I forget the name of one that was in Chicago. I had our HR people went to an HR conference because that's what they chose. I took our enhancement manager to the Equip Expo. That's where he wanted to go. And then I'm doing a thing for 2025 that if we meet all the goals that our departments have set in January of 26, I'm taking the whole management team to go to Europe with me.
Awesome. That'll be a great trip. We'll look forward to hearing details about that.
Yeah, it's good team building. Yeah, I love going to Europe.
Yeah. Fun place to go. I think one of the past conversations we had, I think you alluded to, you have a lot of great women in your team. How does that play into the dynamics of your company? COVID
kind of forced us into that at a certain point. I used to be just like, most of the people in the industry still are right now. And it was all male workforce here. I had one woman who worked in HR, and that was really it for years and years and years. Around COVID, I had some situations where guys were asking to bring their wives in, to work also. We did it a little bit, had a little bit of hiccups at first, and then it really just took off, and not because we had a particular policy to try to pursue it. It just kind of evolved naturally that way. For instance, this year at our peak of the summertime, we had 83 employees, 65 were female. I believe out of our 17 crew leaders, 9 were female. So they are in management. It's not just about, working and stuff. And out of my management team, we have 2 females, one that runs HR and one that actually runs landscape maintenance for us right now, which is awesome. A very big department. And they're all homegrown from being here and moving their way up. I think in general, it's been one of the best things that's happened to us over the last couple of years. I feel like our female workforce has a greater attention to detail. They don't bring their personal issues to work like the guys do, and a lot of times they're very organized. And that's a generalization, but overall, that's how I look at it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I don't think there's even that many people in the industry that have those kind of numbers for females working in their business. But they're kind of fools if they're not doing it right now. No, that's I love that. I'm a big fan of certainly highlighting the women in our industry. I think they're those hidden gems. And we experienced we had some women work in my company. I wish we had more, but you're 100% right. That attention to detail was tremendous. And I come across companies who say, I would like to have more women in our company, but there's never really any real effort made. And then I challenge them a little bit, because I say, well, you say you want to bring more women to your company, but there's nothing on your website. There's nothing really promoting that. So how can you build that message
message. So you're obviously doing something right, Norm. That's awesome. I love it.
At first, when we first started it, it was kind of a weird vibe for everyone. But once we started having more and more women working here, that they just talked to other people about the fact that it was nice to work here. So more and more women, came through word of mouth than anything else. So it's all more about like the family, jokey, fun atmosphere we have here. We're still, hold everybody accountable to working good. I'm probably the worst boss because all I do is mess with everybody all the time. But they're at least used to it, or they tell me they are. So
yeah, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you've got good culture, good atmosphere there, which is tremendous. So it's obviously helped to build your success. Norm, we're wrapping up here. How do people? How can people get in touch with you? Just learn either about government work, or maybe they're interested in hearing your story about getting more women in your company and all the benefits that come along with that.
I mean, I'm pretty big on LinkedIn, so they can message me on LinkedIn, or they could reach me directly through email. It's norm@hhlawncare.org. That's my direct email. So anyone who wants to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about anything in the industry. There's a lot of companies that I talk to right now that are local that I try to help out some of the young guys all the time. I'm definitely not some crazy expert, but I'll at least be honest with you if you call me and ask me a question.
That's great. And that's one of the great things I love about this industry is that all the people that are just willing to help out. So appreciate everything you do for the industry. Norm, congratulations on your success, and look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Norm. We'll get you back on to go into your your military and your Chinese linguistic stories.
We did make our first acquisition this year, though, so you can bring me back on and ask me about that, too.
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. 100%. Yeah, we'll get you back on. So, Norm, absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Are you going to say your key phrase now before you let me go?
Well, pure dead brilliant.
Yes, there you go.
Yes, yeah. It was pure dead brilliant, and thank you for reminding me. I don't say that enough, but it's a phrase I love saying. So thank you for that, Norm.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's part of your podcast. You have to say that every time.
Okay, I do. Absolutely cool. Okay, thank you, Norm. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks for tuning in to the Commercial Landscaper Podcast. I'm Robert Clinkybeard, and I hope today's insights inspire you to push yourself beyond your limits, lead with purpose, and scale your business to new heights. Don't forget to check out our new digital online courses and training programs on the Wilson 360 website, and join the Boss Business Management Software community to optimize your business like never before. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe on YouTube, share it with your network. Let's grow, let's transform the industry together. Until next time, stay inspired and keep striving for greatness. Cheers, everyone.